Strange things have been happening in my family life. I began to resent my husband, David, for not paying enough attention to me. Our time in bed had become a trivial chore. I thought maybe it was because of my age, but I was still not unattractive. Men still found me attractive, but something had definitely changed between David and me, a cooling of feelings. They say it happens, especially after years of marriage. My friends even advised me to have an affair on the side. I thought, what? Me? Cheat on my husband? No way. I can't do that, but deep down, I felt a growing emptiness that I couldn't ignore. I missed feeling wanted, special, and I began to wonder if this was what the rest of my life would really look like. At night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling a sense of loss that I couldn't explain to anyone. The connection I once had with David seemed to have faded into the background, replaced by an emptiness that constantly gnawed at me. I decided to look for a part-time job to keep myself busy. It turned out that my brother-in-law, Ryan, was hiring. He had a small company and needed someone to help clean the office. The pay he offered was great for a half-day's work, and I accepted. I asked David to drive me to the office since it was in the center of town and the bus ride would have taken forever. When we arrived, I entered the building and the security guard showed me where to go. A smiling receptionist escorted me to the correct door. I felt excited and nervous, like I was doing something completely new to me. I hadn't felt such a sense of independence in a long time, and walking through the office felt like I was reclaiming a part of myself that had been lost for a long time. The door was quite massive, and as I opened it, I realized that behind it was another heavy door that also opened inward. I pushed it hard and suddenly the door swung open, letting me into the office. Ryan, who was sitting at his desk, almost burst out laughing. "Wow, mother-in-law, what an entrance you have." I was so embarrassed. We chatted for about 10 minutes about my responsibilities and agreed on office hours. I was thrilled. I now had my own source of income and I felt like I had a purpose again. It was such a small thing, but having a job, even something as simple as cleaning, made me feel more alive. I started waking up with excitement knowing that I had a job that was meant just for me. I worked there for a few days, and Ryan always greeted me warmly and asked how I was doing. He was friendly, even charming, and I began to look forward to meeting him. There was something about his smile that made me feel at ease, and I started dressing up a little more often to look my best. And then, unexpectedly, my daughter, Megan, had to be on bed rest during her pregnancy and Ryan was home alone. Their house was huge and Megan needed help, so I started spending a lot of time there helping with chores. I cooked meals, cleaned the house, and made sure Megan was comfortable. Ryan usually drove me home, but one day he was a little drunk and couldn't drive me, so I called David and told him I would stay the night. That night I was ironing laundry and getting ready to take it upstairs when Ryan stopped me. He said he was feeling lonely and asked if I could sit with him for a while. I agreed. What else was I supposed to do? We went upstairs and sat together on the couch. He looked tired, and there was something vulnerable about him that evening. We started talking, and he talked about the stress of Megan's pregnancy and work. I listened, feeling a strange sense of connection between us. Suddenly, Ryan put his hand on my leg. I looked up at him and he smiled, saying, "Sarah, you're still a woman in your prime." I didn't even have time to finish my sentence before he pulled me to him and kissed me. I hesitated for a couple seconds, but then I decided to give in. I'd wanted something like this for a long time, the intimacy and the joy in my soul. We ended up spending a few hours together, and it was amazing, just unforgettable. It felt like a part of myself that had been dormant for years was awakened. It went on like that for almost 3 weeks until Megan gave birth to a baby boy. I was beyond excited to be a grandmother, but my relationship with Ryan had already crossed a line. Even after Megan came home, my relationship with Ryan and I didn't end. We just moved our meetings to the office. When everyone else left for work, Ryan and I would stay and continue our affair. It was intoxicating, the secrecy, the danger. We knew what we were doing was wrong, but we couldn't stop. We would furtively glance over during the day, exchanging secret smiles, and the anticipation would build until we were alone. Every time we were together, I felt a surge of adrenaline that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. There were times when I was overcome with guilt. I looked at Megan holding her newborn son in her arms and felt like the worst person in the world. I watched David as he tried to build a relationship with me, and I felt like I was betraying everything we had built together. David started to notice that I had changed too. He would ask me if everything was okay, and I would just smile and say I was tired. But really, I was conflicted. Part of me realized that I had to stop, that I was risking everything: my marriage, my relationship with my daughter, my whole family. But another part of me felt alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Ryan made me feel beautiful, desirable, and important. He made me feel seen, something David no longer did. And that's what I craved more than anything. One night, after everyone had left the office, Ryan and I were alone again. He looked at me and I knew what was about to happen. We locked the doors and gave in to our desires. As I lay there afterward, I couldn't help but think about how far things had come. I knew that soon I would have to make a choice. I couldn't continue to live such a double life, but the thought of ending it gave me dread. How could I go back to my old way of life? How could I go back to a monotonous marriage with David after everything I'd been through with Ryan? The passion, the excitement, it was all addictive, and the thought of giving it up seemed unbearable. Ryan and I started seeing each other outside of work. We found excuses to be alone together, and each meeting was riskier than the last. We met in parks, in secluded places where no one could see us. The excitement of being caught only added to the thrill. Once we even got a hotel room, and for a few hours we were free from the world, just two people lost in each other. It was dangerous, exciting, and all-consuming. The more time we spent together, the deeper I fell, and the harder it was to imagine my life without him. I knew I was playing with fire. The lies I was telling David were piling up, and I was getting worse each time. I started avoiding family gatherings, afraid I would blab, or that someone would notice the change in me. Megan, in her sleepy state, didn't seem to notice anything, but I was constantly worried that she would catch on. I cringed thinking about what would happen if she found out. I would lose everything: my family, my marriage, my daughter's trust. But every time I tried to end my relationship with Ryan, I couldn't bring myself to do it. He would look at me, and all my resolve would crumble. He had a way of making me feel like I was the only woman in the world, and I wasn't ready to give that up. One night, after another stormy meeting at the office, Ryan pulled me against him and whispered that he had something important to tell me. The words hung in the air, filled with heavy meaning. I stared at him, my heart pounding. I knew I should have stopped, but instead I kissed his cheek. Deep down, I felt the same way. I tried to convince myself that it was just passion, a desire to feel alive, but it had evolved into something much more complicated. I had feelings for Ryan, real feelings that I couldn't ignore anymore. I realized that we have to stop this, but I can't stop now. I know it's only a matter of time before something makes itself known, when David finds out or Megan notices that something is wrong. The weight of what I'm doing hangs over me every day, but the pull of having an affair with Ryan is still too strong. I'm caught in a web I've created myself, and I don't know how to get out. Guilt, fear, excitement. It's all woven together, and I feel like I'm losing myself in the process. I'm torn between the life I've built and the passion that has reignited my soul. I know I can't have both, but I don't know how to choose. And until I do, I'm stuck in this dangerous dance that could ruin everything at any moment.